On the news tonight, after weeks of anxiety, first batch of Nigerians fleeing Sudan finally arrived in Abuja. President-elect Tinubu promises to fight corruption in judiciary, says Nigeria's unity non-negotiable. And Senate approves President Buhari's 22.7 trillion naira loan request. Hello and welcome to News Now on TV 360 Nigeria. I am Folashade Ogurinde. Effort to evacuate all Nigerian citizens from crisis-torn Sudan appears to be yielding results as the first batch of Nigerians have finally been evacuated. The evacuees, mainly students, arrived in the country on Wednesday night after spending nearly a week stranded in Egypt over visa and border clearance issues. Representatives of government agencies were there to receive them. More details in this report.
It's been a long time coming, but Nigerians trapped in crisis-torn Sudan are finally home. At exactly 11:30 p.m., the first batch of Nigerians evacuated from Egypt by Air Peace arrived at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport in Abuja. Shortly after, the Nigerian Air Force plane conveying another set of Nigerians touched down at the airport in Abuja at about 12 midnight. Soon after, processing of the 364 evacuated Nigerians, who were mostly students, began. Aside screening by officials of the Ministry of Health, the evacuees were profiled and documented by the immigration services and other agencies. The evacuees were also gifted the sum of 100,000 naira and dignity packs. Saratu Idris Adam is in her final year and has 4 more months to finish up her academic program. But all of this has changed. While Saratu and other students like her are thankful to be back home, the experiences are traumatic.
I hope they can do something for us about that, because our studies is our life, our future. Without it, we are nothing. So we just have to find a way to complete our education.
Moving from Khartoum to Egypt border, it was a tough situation for us. We spent about 5 days across the border, no shelter, only sleeping inside the bus, and so much trouble from lack of payment, lack of means of conveying us down to Egypt, down to Nigeria. Some fell sick, some cannot cope due to the extreme weather of the situation.
I still have a lot of things to do there because I'm a businessman. I do buying and selling. I bring ginger into the country from Nigeria here to Sudan. I'm a facilitator and still have a lot of things to do there.
I have been in Khartoum for 18 years and this is the first time we're passing through such. It's a difficult moment for us to, it has never been this bad, but it has never been this bad. We just woke up all of a sudden in the morning and started hearing gunshots and missiles flying through the air.
For parents, their joy knew no bounds after reconnecting with their children.
We're traumatized hearing the news of this breaking out of the crisis, and everybody's annoyed, everybody's just tense. But alhamdulillah, today we are happy.
More than 3,000 Nigerians are still trapped in Sudan. However, another batch of evacuees is expected to return to the country on Thursday. Authorities say no expense will be spared in ensuring that all evacuees are properly resettled.
Our citizens in Sudan, especially the students, are brought back home in safety and in dignity. Today, we are very happy to receive them, all of them. They've gone through a very traumatized period, but we are glad and we give thanks to Almighty Allah that all of them are back safely. No life was lost.
For all of us, even more hectic for the students and the trauma that they've gone through. And also, we're arranging a trauma counseling session for them. Dangote will also be taking care of that. And it's been traumatic more for them than for us, but the anxiety is less now. We're glad that they're all back and nothing has happened to anybody. One student had some injury He was taken to hospital. He's fine now, and war is a terrible thing.
While hopes of a truce and ceasefire in crisis-torn Sudan becomes bleaker by the day, the country's ambassador to Nigeria, Mohammed Yusuf, has pleaded with the evacuees to return once the war is over.
And rehabilitation will be started there, and you can come back to your second country to pursue and continue your studies for those who are students and for others who have business there.
Sudan has been plunged into armed conflict with clashes between rival factions of the North African nation's military government. Folashade Ogrinde, TV 360 News.
And now to politics. The President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu has pledged that his administration will put incentives and policies in place to make corruption unattractive for judges and other legal officials working in the judiciary. Tinubu made the promise during the inauguration of the Magistrates Courts complex in Port Harcourt, Rivers State. While giving a speech, the former Lagos governor disclosed that with the right incentives that guarantee a conducive working atmosphere, the temptation for corruption would reduce.
This is part of the changes that is necessary in our policy think tank. We must fight corruption, and we definitely must look at the other side of the coin. An incoming president has no authority to offer and approve. There can only be one president at a time. I cannot commit to expenditure on behalf of outgoing president when my tenure has not started. Get educated. And that's what I intend to do in all policy formations coming up. Promise Nigerians the unity of this country is not negotiable. That's what is wicked. And I are promoting jointly. I promise I'll be fair to all.
The Senate has approved the request of President Muhammadu Buhari to restructure the 22.7 trillion naira loans the Central Bank of Nigeria extended to the federal government under its Ways and Means provision. The upper legislative chamber approved the request on Wednesday after Ibrahim Gobri, Senate leader, presented a report. President Muhammadu Buhari had asked the Senate to approve the sum in December 2022, but some senators, mostly of the opposition, kicked against it. They demanded that records of what the funds were spent on be provided before approval is given to his request. Well, let's unpack this further with Segun Sopiton, principal partner at Woodridge and Scott Consulting. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, against earlier advice, the Senate has approved the request of President Buhari to restructure the 22.7 trillion naira loans the Central Bank of Nigeria extended to the federal government under its Ways and Means provision. Now, are there economic implications to this move?
Well, thanks for having me again, and good evening, Nigerians. There are economic implications, but I don't think it's what a lot of people are thinking or saying. It would appear as though there's quite a lot of misunderstanding as to what has just happened. So the approval from the Senate is not an approval for a new loan. You hear a lot of the narrative and the criticisms, and people are talking as if the Senate has approved, for the government to go borrow an extra 22.7 trillion. No, the 22.7 trillion has been borrowed already. It's a fait accompli. The CBN has provided these funds to the federal government over the course of several years, breaking all legal provisions, all rules and laws governing such, transactions, especially the CBN Act 2007, which provides that the federal government can only resort as a last resort to the CBN to fund its budget deficits through the ways and means, but only for 5% of its total annual revenue for the previous year. Knowing fully well, for example, that the last year's revenue was about 6 trillion, it means that the CBN should not have been able to give more than 300 billion naira to the federal government. So you have to ask the question, how did the funds in the ways and means account accumulate to 22.7 trillion, which means the government has been flouting the law terribly. But this move by the Senate, what it will do is to legalize, this very illegal transactions, clean up the books, get the Central Bank of Nigeria to be able to issue security. So this is like securitization of the debt, basically. They will issue bonds and some bills to allow for a longer period of repayment and allow the public, the investing public, to actually benefit from this. So I think, contrary to what a lot of people are thinking, this might very well be a good move, because what this has done is it's taken, money that is sitting idle in the CBN's books, and it's made it available to the investing public as a way of deepening, for example, the money market and the securities market. So I'm not so sure that this is a bad thing. I think it's actually a move in the right direction and would help the incoming administration at least stay within the ambit of the law with how they're going to fund and finance government activities, into their own tenure.
Well, just as you've said, do you not think this will set a precedent now for other administrations, especially when you put into consideration the huge loans Nigeria has to pay? Recall that we also have the $800 million, we borrowed from the World Bank, and so many of this loans. What impact do you think this will have on the economy? Do you think we can recover? The federal government has, over time, defended itself, saying that these loans are necessary. Looking back now, do you think they've been able to make good use of these loans with regards to recovery of the economy and every other thing around that?
Okay, so there are two things that you just asked now. I'll address the first, which is the issue of precedence. What has happened, the reality, I think people need to understand what has just happened. What has happened is that our governments have repeatedly, routinely flouted the laws of the land. In some other parts of the world, this is an impeachable offense, committed by the president. They have broken the law, very clearly speaking. And it is not just this president. For the ways and means account to be 22.7 trillion, what this means, just going by the calculations that I've just done, is that this amount has been accumulated over a long period of time, which probably, my guess is that this has gone beyond even this administration. This is a practice that has been in place long before this administration came on board. So in terms of precedence, yes, there is a terrible precedence that could be set in that incoming governments or subsequent governments, thinking of government as a continuum, governments will then say to themselves, look, there's no big deal. We can take this money, we can break the law, and at some point down the line, we'll get an approval from the Senate and regularize and securitize this loan. So that is a bad thing, but I think that it is better for us to correct the wrongs of the past and then try to start on a clean slate, which is what this approval will do. Now, going to the other part of your question, which is what the funds have been utilized for, and whether they've been judiciously used, whether all these funds, these loans will result in development of our economy. The answer is in the wind, Shade. We know that this government has spent quite a lot of money on infrastructure projects, but the exact quantum of money, the volume of money that has been used for which particular project, the repayment sources for the loans that we're talking about, and all of those other details are completely unknown to Nigerians. And even if you send, a freedom of information request to the Ministry of Finance, as some people have done in the past, you will probably find that you will not get the answers you need. So I think that as Nigerians, we need to pay a bit more attention to these things and maybe find a way to hold our governments accountable so that we don't have loans piling up on generations yet unborn, whilst we are not quite seeing what those monies are used for.
Well, indeed, Shagu Shokwito, I wish we can extend this conversation, but we need to wrap it up at this point. But Shagu Shokwito, principal partner at Woodridge and Scott Consulting, thank you very much for your insight. And now to security. Troops across the various theatres of operations in the country have continued to sustain their commitment and resilience in the fight against terrorist and other criminal activities. The Director, Defense Media Operations, Major General Musa Danmadani, confirmed this feat during the bi-weekly briefing on the operational successes recorded by the Armed Forces of Nigeria and other security agencies in the past 2 weeks. Danmadani revealed that within the period under review, troops conducted ambush and clearance operations targeted at terrorist enclave, which resulted in the killing of several terrorists and recovery of large cache of arms and ammunition.
Within the week in focus, troops within the northeast zone of the country recovered 16 AK-47 rifle, 15 den guns, 6 QJC-88 anti-aircraft gun, 1 QJC-88 gun barrel, 1 submachine gun, 2 Deshika M anti-aircraft gun, 2 NSVT anti-aircraft gun, 1 general purpose machine gun, 1 pump action gun, 2 locally made double barrel gun, 1 locally made shotgun. Other recovered items include 1 submachine gun magazine, 33 sniper rifle magazine, 3 extra general purpose machine gun barrel, several unexploded explosive ordnances to be used for IED, 7 122mm bombs, 3 120mm bomb, 3 105mm bomb, 2 155mm bomb, 1 105mm APF SDS bomb, 2 36 hand grenades, and 8 metal pressure pump, among other items. Troops equally neutralized 40 terrorists, arrested 25 terrorists, as well as 8 terrorist logistic suppliers. Troops also rescued 131 abducted civilians, while a total of 510 Boko Haram and Islamic State of West African Province terrorists and members of their family, comprising of 54 adult males, 164 adult female, and 292 children, surrendered to troops at different locations within the theater of operations.
We'll take a break here, but still to come on News Now. The International Monetary Fund cautions as e-naira transactions hit 1.4 million naira. We'll bring you details of this story and more right after this break.
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the President of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On Digi 360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
Digi 360, dissecting the issues.
Welcome back to News Now. Here is a recap of some of our top stories tonight. Efforts to evacuate all Nigerian citizens from crisis-torn Sudan appears to be yielding results as the first batch of Nigerians have finally been evacuated. The evacuees, mainly students, arrived in the country on Wednesday night after spending nearly a week stranded in Egypt over visa and border clearance issues. Representatives of government agencies were there to receive them. We also told you that the President-elect Tinubu has pledged that his administration will put incentives and policies in place to make corruption unattractive for judges and other legal officials working in the judiciary. Tinubu made this promise during the inauguration of the Magistrate Courts Complex in Port Harcourt. The Rivers State capital explained that with the right incentives, guarantee a conducive working atmosphere, the temptation for corruption would reduce. Well, in case you missed any of our news bulletins, for more updates, you can catch us on Lime Export TV or log on to our website at www.tv360nigeria.com. You can also follow us on our social media platforms on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at TV360 Nigeria. On Facebook, we are TV360 Online. The federal government says more than 900 million naira has been disbursed in Borno to mitigate COVID-19 impact under the country's Action Recovery and Economic Stimulus NG Cares program. The Minister of State for Finance, Budget and National Planning, Clem Agba, disclosed this during the ministerial town hall meeting for stakeholders in Borno and Yobe states in Maiduguri. He explained that the program was designed to provide immediate relief to poor and vulnerable individuals and households, smallholder farmers, and micro and small enterprises that were adversely affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. According to the minister, the program has so far impacted on 2 million direct beneficiaries in the 36 states and the FCT. We'll take a breather now. Up next is business news. Do stay with us. Welcome back. Let's now join Simi Soladigun for more stories in business. Over to you, Simi.
Thank you very much, Falashade. Welcome to Business News. The International Monetary Fund has cautioned about the unforeseeable consequences that could be brought about by the retail central bank digital currencies. This warning comes after Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, disclosed that the e-naira transactions had hit about 1.4 million naira as of March 31, 2023. However, the IMF's Managing Director, Kristalina Georgieva, considers retail CBDCs to have far more room for errors than wholesale CBDCs. She disclosed that the organization was collaborating with about 50 countries to ensure best practices are adopted, adding that a CBDC handbook to help central banks with design and implementation would be published soon. We'll take a short break and return with a review of the stock market. Stay with us. Well, after 2 days of negative trading, the local equities market has recorded its first gain of the week in May. During trading on Thursday, investors leveraged the opportunity in the market's recent dip, buying value stocks, which helped its first positive close. Going up by 0.16%, investors gained 45 billion naira at the close of the trading session. Now, stocks like Ardova PLC and NEM Insurance Company helped push the market higher. Alongside a higher market breadth, the stock market's positive return year-to-date also rose to 2.03%. Investors traded over 1 billion volume of shares valued at 7 billion naira in 5,960 deals. Now, from a bullish local bourse to mixed trading of our select foreign stocks, the UK's FTSE and US Dow Jones both stand in the bears region, leaving Asia's Nikkei with a bullish stance at 0.12%. Well, that's all in business. Folashade has the rest of the news.
Well, many thanks to Ms. La for that update. And now to the foreign scene. The White House on Wednesday has denied any involvement in an alleged drone attack on the Kremlin after Russian spokesman Dmitry Peskov accused Washington of guiding Ukraine to launch the assault. Russia alleges that Ukraine carried out a terrorist attack overnight on Tuesday into Wednesday with 2 drones aiming to kill President Vladimir Putin, a charge which Kyiv has denied. The incident at the Kremlin comes amid several other recent explosions and trill derailments on Russian and occupied Ukrainian territory. Well, up next is Entertainment Report on News Now.
Nigerian pop musician Chris Umba, who was reportedly down with heart disease, is dead. The musician, who was famous in the 1980s for his Jericho's and Eat Like Funky Situation, Baby Don't Cry, Making My Way and Love Everlasting, died on Wednesday at Lagos University Teaching Hospital. Announcing the demise of the singer was the general manager of the Premier Music, which Chris was signed to. Michael Odiang says Chris Umba was a bundle of talent who localized pop music by adding local instruments into his music to give the African feel. He made waves in the late 80s up to the 90s when he released hits like Baby Don't Cry. The management of Premier Records Limited has condoled with the family and prayed God give them the fortitude to bear the loss. A.Y. Mekun, popular Nigerian comedian and filmmaker, has announced the highly anticipated return of his Merry Men franchise. The announcement was made on social media along with stills from the upcoming Merry Men 3. The first look images of the new movie reveals that some of the familiar cast members such as Ramsey Noah, William Zuchemba, Regina Daniels and A.Y. will be returning. However, new additions to the franchise include Nadia Buhari and Sam Dede, who are featured in a luxurious wedding scene surrounded by guests. Although details on the plot, the rest of the cast, and the release date are scarce, the new movie is expected to continue the original storyline that started with Merry Men, the Real Yoruba Demon in 2018, which was followed by Merry Men 2, Another Mission in 2019. That's it on the entertainment segment of News Now. Tamilore Akinkolye, TV 360, Nigeria.
Away from entertainment and out to sport, following months of uncertainty, it has been revealed that PSG and Messi have decided to go their separate ways at the end of the season upon the expiry of his contract. Although the news came following Messi's internal suspension for an unauthorized trip to Saudi Arabia earlier this week, the Argentine is reported to have made the decision a few weeks ago. However, Messi is in talks of a move to the Russian Saudi League, which would see him playing in the same country as Cristiano Ronaldo once again. And that's the size of our news bulletin. Many thanks for watching. I am Folashade Ogurinde. Bye for now.